Hola a todos. It's great to be here. I'm very, very happy to have my friend Shu here. I'm going to ask him a lot of questions. Hi, Shu.
Hello, buenos días.
Buenos dias. Uh, I'm going to first start by introducing you, my friend, because not everybody knows your career. I am, by the way, Federico Antoni, founding partner of ALLVP, an early stage venture capital firm based in Mexico City. Shu has a fantastic career. He's originally from Kenya, and he spent his first years at McKinsey and JP Morgan. Shu joined Softbank in 2015 and is still there and is now the managing partner of SoftBank International and the SoftBank Opportunity Fund. One thing that almost nobody knows about Shu, even if it's in his LinkedIn account, but you tend to not read until the end, is that Shu is a singer-songwriter. So you can actually hear his songs on Spotify, I think. Yes, Shu?
Spotify, Apple Music. Please
Everywhere.
listen. I get royalties when you click, so please click.
Perfect.
You
Let's
have to
get
listen
us.
more than 30 seconds, I think, for the
Oh,
royalty to count.
got it, got it. Thank you for the instructions. So let's get us started with the amazing opportunity in fintech that you're both creating and participating in with SoftBank. You just announced a fresh $3 billion commitment for the region, and it is on top of already a big commitment that you started in 2019. My question is, what is going on? What is different? Why are you betting so much money to the region?
It's not a lot of money. The problem is there was too little money in Latin America. Latin America is a huge continent, the same number of people as Southeast Asia and twice the GDP, but it has a fraction of the venture capital of Southeast Asia. And Southeast Asia has created a number of really valuable companies. So there's no reason Latin America should not create the same number of valuable companies. It's just there was no venture capital. When we were in 2018 thinking about LatAm, it was $1 billion, 1.5, 2 billion a year in venture capital. The projections for next year are 20 billion. So that's 10x in 3 years. We're a small piece of that. So in a sense, our funds look like they're big, but it's because nobody else was putting capital in the region. Now other people are putting capital in the region. It's starting to catch up to the rest of the world, but still, no one thought we could deploy $5 billion in a couple of years. And we did it actually in a fairly straightforward way. We weren't trying to be crazy. So there's capacity in the market for that kind of capital.
And are you seeing that things have changed? You clearly have more competition.
We do, but that's great. So on the one hand, we don't like it because who likes competition? But everyone is noticing the opportunity we saw in 2018, 2019, that Latin America is one of the few unexplored places in tech venture where there are still big outcomes to be had and across big pieces of GDP. This isn't about specialized companies doing very small niche things. It's about big pieces of GDP being addressed by entrepreneurs. So that's known to more and more people now. And so they're bringing their capital to the region, which we love because it validates the ecosystem. It creates more companies. It's better for everybody.
And I've heard you say that it is important to differentiate yourself with branded capital. And one of the things that you just launched is actually an early stage practice. Could you tell us a little bit about that and how that has an impact in the way you invested before?
Yeah, so when we first launched in the region, it was just growth investing, so Series B and later. We did very few early stage investments. But what we realized is there's some businesses that are very capital efficient, especially software businesses. And if you don't invest early, you may not get a chance to own a meaningful piece of that company ever again. So we really wanted to be there as early as we felt comfortable for certain types of companies and then go with them all the way. We want to be a very, very flexible capital provider. So we do public investments, we have a SPAC, we do growth investments, now we do early. We want to be able to offer all these tools so that the best founders can just think, oh, I should just go talk to the SoftBank people. The idea of branded capital, which you mentioned, is very important because money is maybe interesting, but not enough in most cases. The importance of branded capital is you can say, I raised money from ALLVP, and that helps you attract clients, attract customers, attract employees to work at your company rather than the other. And it's the same for us. People say, I raised money from Softbank, and the next day they're recruiting somebody that they would not have otherwise been able to recruit. So it makes a difference.
And in general, Softbank does things differently. And I think that's very interesting. Are you expecting to do things differently in early stage?
We try not to reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. So there are certain processes and approaches that have always worked really well. In Latin America, I don't think we've had to be that innovative. We've just had to show up with real capital and with real help. And that's what we want to port to the early stage side. So we want to be there for founders early and actually help them scale. Maybe that second piece is the slightly different piece. In the US, Andreessen Horowitz popularized this idea of platform and services that come with a venture capital firm. We're kind of taking some of that idea and applying it in Latin America, but I wouldn't call it that innovative.
So that means, and this is for the founders hearing us today, that means that you will be investing in seed stage companies, Series A stage companies?
Seed until IPO and beyond.
That's amazing news. One thing that you've done very differently, even in Latin America, is that you've invested in companies in the financial services sector, such as GBM and Banco Inter. And as I read that announcement, and as I see you take big chunks of those companies, what I'm thinking is that you're basically betting that you can transform those companies to digital before that a startup gets to the scale that they have. Tell us a little bit about what you're thinking when investing in those companies, how your mindset changes.
Sure. I'd say, first of all, our goal is to invest in the future of LatAm. That's really the North Star. It's not to invest in startups. It's to invest in the digital technology future of LatAm. Sometimes a startup is not the best positioned company to capture an opportunity because you have an incumbent that behaves like a startup or has the mentality of a startup or has certain attributes that make it able to capture that opportunity. It's not common. So if it's a big, slow, bureaucratic company, it will never happen. But I'll give the example of Magazine Luiza in Brazil, which is an e-commerce juggernaut. And they started with offline retail. The difference is they were owned by a family. The son took over. He's willing to be bold and really behave like a founder, like the typical tech founder that we know. And that's why Magalu has been such a dynamic success. That could happen in other sectors. So GBM is same thing, that they got eyes, have a generational shift. They're really invested in transforming the business. We're not the ones pushing the agenda. We just want to help out. Same thing with Banco Inter. So the Menin family, who have always been entrepreneurs and founders, and they've transitioned the business into a digital bank very successfully. And we just came to help them out. So we try not to do the transforming. We try to find entrepreneurs. These are all entrepreneurs who can behave like modern tech founders and move quickly and make decisions and attract the right talent. And in Latin America, you see more of that kind of dynamic than you see in the US, for sure.
And do you think that it has something to do with the fact that these two companies that I mentioned are in the financial services sector, where there is more friction related to getting licenses to operate, and there is really a time to market in terms of the non-market forces, I would say?
Yeah, I'd generalize it. I'd say it definitely helps to be an incumbent in an industry where incumbency is a valuable thing. So that's for financial services for sure, because of the regulatory aspects, but it can also be in other types of businesses with very concentrated supply chains or some other reason why the incumbent is very, very strong. That doesn't mean they can invent the future, but if they have that strength and they have the right mentality to move quickly and incentivize employees and carve out equity for people who work for them, not just pay them salaries, all of that startup mindset, then it can be very powerful.
Interesting. You've switching gears a bit here, but you've always said that Latin America, and this is the title of our conversation, is in a renaissance in terms of entrepreneurship. Could you describe what is happening and why do you refer to renaissance?
Yeah. So you need a few components to make the magic happen. You need founders. people who are crazy enough to say, I'm going to start a business and convince other people to come work for me and do something amazing. You need those. And you need capital, but the right kind of capital that can be long-term, patient, not where's your EBITDA next quarter, but where's your EBITDA in 10 years, and it'll be even bigger, that kind of mentality. Those two things have started to come together in LatAm. And the talent level in general is very, very high. So all the founders we're meeting and their teams, whether they've gone to Tech Monterrey or to Stanford or to MIT, they're all very, very good technically, very savvy from a business point of view. These emerging markets, I grew up in Kenya. LatAm in some ways is not very different. You learn grit just growing up in those places. And so these entrepreneurs have a different quality about them. They're more tenacious, they get things done quickly. All those things put together with a little bit of capital, and you get this explosion of startups that you've gotten. The other element that's very important is a lot of the population is not well served. Whatever the category, services, goods, you pick it. Pick any category. There's a huge chunk of the population that's very underserved. And so you have a lot to do as an entrepreneur. You're kind of spoiled as an entrepreneur. Just pick a sector and go raise money and attack it, and you'll find an opportunity there. So all those things put together have created a really special moment for Latin America right now.
And what would you say about underestimated founders? Latin America is still a story about elites having a younger generation going to school in the US or working for a US-based company, and then coming back with all the confidence and the networks and the access to capital that you have when you're part of an elite in an emerging market. Are you seeing that we're progressing in that sense? What can we do to have more investment in this underestimated founders or female founders?
Yeah, so I'd add one layer of nuance to what you just said. So I agree with you. Predominantly, I mean, we did a video the other day of all our founders in Latin America. And when we played the whole thing, we said, oh my God, these people broadly look the same. What's
Indeed.
wrong? But you have to understand that Latin America in general has been underestimated. So in the 7 years I've been at Softbank, all the companies that used to come to Tokyo to meet with Masa and pitch and raise money from Softbank, almost none of them were from Latin America. Latin America was ignored. So step one, and we're at step one, this is going to be a 10-step process, right? We're at step one. Step one is let's put Latin America on the map. Step two is let's think about how to diversify the founders who are building businesses. So we are still in step one, and these steps take some time, but I think you can't skip step one. It's very important to show everyone this region has promise. Let's just go find whoever's doing it now, whoever has the access to capital now, and help them build big businesses. And then let's find a way to put that capital back in a way that creates more opportunity for others. So we'll be here for step 2, 3, 4, all the way to 10. It's just not going to be overnight. It'll take a lot of time.
I agree. And I would argue that it is our job as investors with a smaller boutique platform like ALLVP and a larger, formidable platform like Softbank. It is our job to complement the networks, to complement the confidence, to complement with capital this underestimated founders that have the talent but may not have been born in the right place at the right time. So I would argue that we could accelerate the steps, and I think that Softbank is working towards that.
Now, the complicating factor there is you have foreign founders looking at Latin America, seeing an opportunity and coming in to build companies as well. So there's this whole extra dynamic where not just capital, but also talent sees the opportunity in LatAm, and founders are coming from the US and from China and from Nigeria to Mexico to build companies. So that complicates this story a little more. But I think it's very important to allow the successes to happen and to create a community that cares about equity. So all the founders that we fund, we should be having conversations, tough conversations with them about diversifying their teams, diversifying their boards, paying it forward, mentoring the next generation of founders who do not look like them, etc.
That's a great point. So we're in a fintech event, one of the best in the world, I would say. we have to talk more about fintech. And congratulations on Confio, by the way, the latest unicorn.
Thank you, but don't congratulate us. we have we
You're
have
right.
nothing to do with it. It's David and his team who are steadily building a valuable company.
You're correct. I shouldn't congratulate you. But tell me about what you're seeing for the future. Where do you think is gonna be you're gonna find the next Confio? Where are you gonna find the next Bitso? What are the verticals in fintech that you're looking at?
So I don't think that way. And we have a bit of a debate, philosophical argument in our team on this exact point. You can start with, let me go look for things in these three themes that I really think are important. That's one approach. I don't like that approach. I just try to go and find interesting entrepreneurs, whatever they're doing, because inevitably what they're doing will be to some extent surprising and not what I thought of in the beginning. So I'm not the entrepreneur. I'm not the expert on the market. My job is to find the interesting entrepreneurs who are doing things that I would never have thought of. So the way I see this job is you just have to keep your ear to the ground to find very compelling entrepreneurs who are doing interesting things and who are able to attract interesting people around them. Once you find them, they will tell you what's worth building. In financial services, there's so much still to do. I mean, as I said earlier, pick a category, there are lots of people and businesses who are underserved. And that's particularly true in financial services. If you unlock credit, if you unlock payments, you unlock so many other things as well. And there's still so much of payments and credit to unlock. Mexico is still very much cash-based. It needs to go digital. Maybe it needs to go crypto first. There's so many interesting things to build, and there'll be many businesses constructed around those themes that are worth a lot of equity in the future. So I'm keeping a very open mind. We just want to find the next David Arana or Daniel Vogel or Pier Paolo Barbieri, who's Argentine but building a fintech company in Mexico, or the De Garay family. We want to find these people who are passionate about this space and building things. Or Adolfo from Clip, for example, who's been driving the transformation from credit to cash, from cash to credit for quite a while.
That's a very interesting approach, and I think you're right. That's the right way to do it. Talking about Bitcoin and about switching from cash to digital, what do you think about the experiment going on right now in El Salvador, where Bitso is taking a role?
I think experiments are great. The tricky thing with experiments is you don't want to piss off a government and a regulatory body. So if you have that kind of official support for something, it's very interesting to see how it plays out. But right now, I would say crypto is in a period of regulatory tension globally. Crypto in general, and maybe it's Bitcoin specifically, maybe it's DeFi lending specifically, but crypto in general, I think, is in a moment of regulatory tension around the world. So I like experiments because they will show the value that happens when something is done in a regulated way and in an innovative way. Miami is another city where I live now, which is very much on the forefront of let's do crypto the right way, let's support it and regulate it and let people experiment. I think that's all really healthy. Just like with mobile or the internet or a cloud, we don't know what will happen, but for sure, interesting things will happen. So I think experiments are great. I think we're also in a bit of a crypto renaissance right now, and I can't wait to see how it plays out, especially in places like LatAm, where there's this gap. It's like landlines and mobile phones. You didn't have landlines in emerging markets, and they all just went straight to mobile phones. The US is still stuck with landlines, and it hasn't innovated as much in mobile as Mexico has or Kenya has. So I think with crypto, you'll see some of this similar thing where people will go from cash to DeFi, skipping Visa and MasterCard altogether. Why use Visa and MasterCard when you don't have to? So there'll be very interesting dynamics happening, I think, in emerging markets especially, and I'm very excited to see what talented founders will build.
And what you're saying is true, but as investor, we have to have a view on the regulatory environment and how is that going to change, how fast it can change, and how dangerous it can be for the fintech or DeFi startups we're backing. This week, the Mexican regulator closed down a bank called Accendo that was providing a bank as a service to startups. And it is a great example to think about regulation. How would you recommend founders to think about that? Should they go move forward and be aggressive and make it work afterwards, and they'll find investors that will be patient? Should they wait for regulatory visibility? What's your view on that?
That's a tough question, and you're right in the middle of it. I know with a few of your investments. I think the important thing from regulators is some kind of predictability. So I'll give Ascendo maybe a special case, but then there are other banking as a service providers in Mexico that just this week did not get their IFPE. And we've been hearing from Mexico regulators since 2019, IFPEs are coming, IFPEs are coming, it'll be 3 months, it'll be 6 months, they're about to come. Here we are 2.5 years later, and nobody knows exactly what's happening. That's the dangerous thing. And now as a fintech in Mexico, you have to decide, do I get my own IFPE? Do I get a SOFIPO? Do I get a SOFOM? Do I buy a bank? Do I partner with a bank? And it's unclear which of those things you should do or how long it should take. That's a problem. I think there should just be some clarity about timelines and expectations so that startups can plan, because without planning, you don't know what to build. So I'd say Mexico is failing on that front right now. Brazil has been a lot clearer about what regulation is required in order to do what. And just clarifying things more and providing some predictability would help a great deal.
That's a great call to action for us as an industry and for the regulator, no doubt. I have time for just another question. Do you have any parting advice for founders that are just getting together on a Starbucks, on Zooms to plan for their fintech startup? Do you have any parting advice?
Yes, my favorite advice to give to startup founders is don't think of the big market and the big opportunity and the slides and the TAM and how it's all going to be huge. That's the wrong way to start building a product. The right way to start building a product is to build something very specific that solves a real problem for a real person. And the more specific and the more real the problem and the more real the person, the better your starting point. Because when you're starting off, all you need is a good starting point in kind of a big market, but that solves itself over time. You need a good starting point. So focus on the starting point and don't focus on the market and the TAM and how big the opportunity is.
That's great advice. Shu, thank you very much. Looking forward to co-investing with you in early stages and seeing you invest more in the region. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Federico. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.